All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SaaSberry AI podcast. Today, we're joined by a special guest and Steve Boey, of course. Today's topic is AI coding for enterprise software from the point of view of product managers and executive sponsors. So let's hop right into it.
SaaSberry AI Podcast. Today's guest, Christina Taylor. AI coding for enterprise software from the POV of product managers and executive sponsors.
Oh, thank you, Chase. Glad to be back. I do this every other week because it nobody wants to hear the engineer every week. So,
Not true.
anyways, I'm the CTO. I'm the geek. I'm the head geek at SaaSberry, and at SaaSberry we built agentic AI solutions, I'm very happy to have Christina here this week. So Christina Taylor is she's currently the VP of Dealer Success at Signal Technologies. Very innovative company, and I'll let her explain.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve. Chase as well. Happy to be here. I'm Christina Taylor. So, as Steve mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Dealer Success at Signal Technologies. Signal, very simply put, we help dealers simplify cross-border vehicle exports from Canada to the US. And our platform specifically brings together a bunch of fun things. So pricing, compliance, financing, logistics, remarketing, insurance, all in one intelligent system. So I have a pretty unique position at Signal where I get to sit at kind of the intersection of product, data, and customer success and see, firsthand how technology and human insight can come together and change how our industry works. So I'm happy to be here today. Thanks for inviting me.
And Christina makes the Signal and Christina make a great, amazing impact on this transaction, because the transactions for motor vehicles is anything but simple. It's very full of friction, and their platform makes a vast difference to this transaction. So let's start with talking about the big picture when it comes to AI's impact on enterprise roadmaps. So with vibe coding and with how things have fundamentally changed with AI and coding, and especially how products are pushed into the market, everything's changed from the product planning to the build to the deployment to production. So what from our experience, since we start heavily using kind of coding, vibe coding, and coding assistance since for the last few years, it's fundamentally made us more productive. But we've also needed to leverage our experience when it comes to knowing what is the right way to do it and what's the wrong way to do it. And it's really hard because this is all very new. And you look at what OpenAI released over the last few months with Codex and all the other with Claude Code, etc. It's really made the engineer's life really fast, but also that it's not the easy button. And from a kind of a VP, kind of product manager as well perspective, what do you think, Christina?
Yeah, that's funny. Steve, I appreciate you saying, VP product manager. I did start as a product manager, so that's where, I might have a bit of a different level of insight into this than the standard executive sponsor might, which I find really helps me in my job specifically. Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned at the beginning when we first started chatting today that we have something called Export 2.0. And there's kind of three layers to our platform. We have the Canadian dealer side, which is called Signal Export. We have Signal Import, which is for registered importers. And then we have our Signal Marketplace, which is what US dealers use to actually purchase the inventory that we're sending down south. And when we re-envisioned our platform, especially in, I'd say, the last 12 to 18 months, we now call our newest version Export 2.0. And Export 2.0 was built with roughly somewhere between 70 to 80% vibe coding using AI, which is a pretty high number. And especially for our team, who we have a team of about 25 or so developers and product team on Team Signal, and they all had to learn how to utilize AI in this new world. It's not like they just were trained this way. They didn't know going into it. And I think it was Tane, our president, that just said one day, hey, can you guys just figure it out? Like let's give it a shot. Let's be on the leading edge of this.
Yes.
And our team took the challenge. So AI itself is no longer a bolt on. It's becoming embedded in every single layer, from features, workflows, UX and UI, data modeling, and frankly, decision automation in general, from a team perspective, and then from a customer workflow perspective. So the bar for differentiation has really shifted. And today, human and AI synergy is really the new baseline. Intelligent recommendations, predictive insights, and contextual automation now define competitiveness, which I know is something that SaaSberry really believes in, and is something that you put in place for your customers. And it's something that at Signal, we're fortunate to have an incredible mix of data scientists, engineers, architects, product leaders, and they're quite literally some of the smartest people in every room, much smarter than myself and speaking on this
I wouldn't
topic,
say that.
I will say. But they're really truly training and refining our models every single day, from appraisal algorithms that are specific to Canadian to US market trends, that price vehicles using millions of historical transactions, to scoring systems that evaluate inventory based on real world performance outcomes. So, this kind of deep collaboration isn't easy, and it takes consistent iteration between data, infrastructure, and user experience, but it's absolutely necessary to stay ahead of the game.
And I think it's really really important to understand the leadership aspect of this from a executive level. So
Mhm.
can you step us through your journey and your observation in your organization, how
Mhm.
that leadership played a role in giving them the freedom and giving them the I guess the empowerment to really take the lead on this and to use it and be all in. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's challenging, right? Because you don't want anyone to ever feel as though they're being replaced by AI. I think in a lot of roles, and especially in technology, it's really easy to fall back into that and go, well, I don't really want to use it. I don't feel comfortable, because behind that is fear, right? At the end of the day, most of it's related to fear. So, for executives, AI introduces a new balancing act for human resources as well. There's pressure to move fast, like we need to do AI, but the real challenge is, balancing ambition with readiness within the team. So you have to ask, do we have the right data foundations? Are our teams trained and aligned? Do we have clear metrics for success? And as sponsors, we need to kind of fund the invisible work, if you will. So the data plumbing, the infrastructure, the change management that make AI sustainable and really reduce the feeling of fear for the team. And, we must create a space for that experimentation. Safe failure, one of our biggest things at Signal. It's actually like in our vision and mission is fail fast. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. You need to learn fast and fail fast and share insights along the way. Otherwise, you're just creating and encouraging that fear within your team, which is not necessary, because AI can be our friend. It doesn't have to be, our enemy. And that's how real transformation happens.
absolutely, absolutely. And I want to show a little chart here. I think it gives people a sense of how much it's changed. If you look at this chart here, starting from 2023 Q1 to 2025 Q2, the trajectory of vibe coding. Again, we're looking from 10%, just past 10% to over 40%. But if you take overall looking at like the true vibe coding, you're going from 0 to just over 40. And the key here is this, that when we talk about vibe coding, it's important to understand that we're talking about two different things, right? We're talking about vibe coding tools which people who aren't necessarily very technical use for prototyping, and then vibe coding tools that engineers are using it from building their code, helping them as they code, building whole sections of code. Those things are very, very important for both type of users. But it's really good, like Christina said, that the executive sponsors and the leadership of the organization, especially at the very, very top, say it's safe to use this. We need to try, we need to understand these tools so that we know how to fully leverage. And it is, in many ways, the genie is out of the box. It's going to be the future. It is the direction we need to head. So let's move on to kind of like the next topic here, in that we talk about the in the trenches, the evolution of the product manager and then the new toolkit and the new approach, right? So I want you to kind of talk us through how Signal Export was built originally and how it was last built in the 2.0 version.
Yeah, I mean, here's the reality. Like the role of the product manager is evolving rapidly. And like to your point, it's not just the engineering teams or the architects that have to be on the cutting edge of what's coming and looking ahead. It has to be coming from the product perspective as well. So, they're no longer just product owners. They're really AI integrators at the end of the day. And so working hand in hand with data scientists and ML engineers and designers, and truly they must understand how models behave, and how they improve through feedback loops. So if you look at the way that we originally created the platform, which was like old school, we're doing I say old school, it's like it was 5 years ago. It was yesterday. What are you talking about? Yeah, so we did it through traditional wireframing and gathering feedback from the market. I'm not saying that that's dead, but it's vastly different than the way that we're doing it today. So the balancing act is balancing technical depth with user empathy and storytelling in conjunction with things like vibe coding with the team. And so PMs define smart wins, small measurable AI features that prove value early. For us in 2.0, that's really prevalent in things like how we model our data for Canadian dealers to make intelligent purchases to ensure that their margins are strong when they send the vehicles down south. And there's things like FX to be concerned about. There's things like market volatility and micro and macroeconomic impacts. And so it's a new era of cross-disciplinary collaboration and learning, both internally and externally. And when we launched Signal Export 2.0, we launched it in July of 2025 this year. Our goal was super simple: help dealers make better, faster decisions. And so we built intelligent tools behind the scene, from market valuations and recall checking to export calculations and remarketing and compliance automation, all of which did not exist from an automation standpoint prior to things like vibe coding and really the last kind of learnings in the last 6 to 8 months of how AI has transformed. So, we've used machine learning tailored to millions of auction transactions and things like that, dashboards and things that need to highlight attention and to make intelligent decisions for a business to remain and increase profitability ultimately.
Absolutely. So I find that the role of a traditional engineer has evolved as well, and they've adopted a bit more of that traditional role of a product manager as well, because when they build the code, whether it's from a agentic standpoint, whether it's higher level, will build large portions of the code, or even inline, they're trying to explain to the AI what they need to be built. And essentially that's what a product manager used to do in writing up user stories and writing up tasks and helping the engineer understand the context. But now that the engineer is writing it out, I think they've also become better, they've built better empathy for the end user and also become more holistic in the way they look at the whole application and what needs to be delivered. So I find it I find very, very few negatives when it comes to what AI has brought to the table in where we're going engineering wise, as well as product delivery as a product manager. I'm sure that from a product manager standpoint, you appreciate the speed in which we can get to the end.
Yeah. It's so interesting, right? Like we're moving from things like AI assistants, which, arguably are one of the first things that people really got into, to things like Copilot, which I know you guys are big Microsoft fans. So things like Copilot, to autonomous models. And, soon large parts of software development, from code generation, to your point, writing tickets, improving tickets, potentially anticipating future needs from existing tickets, to things like QA development will be AI mediated. And I know, speaking from SaaSberry, I worked with you guys several years ago directly, and I know that for you were on the cutting edge of things like QA automation, even 6 or 7 years ago. But that, I think, will largely be incorporated into
Yes.
a lot of different organizations moving forward. And we'll see, models where internal and external businesses combine to power, domain specific capabilities, AI platforms with training pipelines, monitoring, governance. They'll become the backbone of enterprise infrastructures. And as that happens, governance, safety, and interpretability must be first class citizens, not
Yes.
afterthoughts. So
Yes.
it's the next frontier of continuous learning systems, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think you make a really good point about governance and security here, because that has been a big reason why a lot of enterprise organizations have been a bit slower to adopt,
Yeah.
right? So let's take a look at this chart I have here, and we talk about the adoption by industry, the latest stats on it, and you can see tech startups being the dominant group, and digital agencies, and then you work your way down, and it tends to be and industries that tend to be more governed by strict rules, like healthcare, financial services, that they are close to the bottom when it comes to adoption. But I think as AI models get better, the tooling gets better, the generative AI aspect gets smarter, and the training and the feedback loop, like you mentioned earlier too, collectively makes these systems smarter, these AI smarter, that governance and security is no longer an afterthought when it comes to move fast and break things, right? It becomes now more built in, and it becomes more reliable. The level of hallucination goes down, way down, which is very, very important. But at the end of the day, as an engineer, and even as a product manager, there is some level of grounding that needs to happen, right? So the human in the loop aspect, right? So
Mhm.
you need to look at trust but verify. Understand that when you look at something, you go, okay, well, this operate, it operates the way we anticipate, but let's go through phases of rollout to make sure that the responses are validated, the output is accurate and is reliable, and that we can put out a product that's very, very much trustworthy. And then I think that diagram will change with different sectors, with like healthcare, manufacturing, government, that will move towards more parity with adoption. So
Totally. And I think, you hit on something really important there, Steve. Actionable advice for people moving forward with integrating things like AI in areas or industries where protection of data is of such importance to them. The way that I look at it is kind of in three things. So the first being start small, but smart. So, pick a high impact, narrow scope pilot where you can measure and learn. The second would probably be, to your point, define what that success criteria is early. That's an age old tale, but extremely important when you're training models, right? So, use clear KPIs. Is it time saved? Is it error reduction? Is it margin lift? What are you hoping to achieve? And then, champion experimentation. Again, I go back to fail fast. Create a culture that celebrates, small wins and learns from those misses. And I think the more that companies create that type of culture, again, the less scary it becomes and the more productive teams can be in the end.
totally agree. Also, I think that needs, and I think that this kind of points out some of the differences between Canadian organizations and U.S. organizations. The level of risk that we're willing to take on, or being more adventurous, should we say, is
Yeah.
a bit less in Canada. But that's become problematic because at the end of the day, nothing is 100%. Whether you use human coders, they make mistakes the same way AI models make mistakes. It's going to happen. But I think if if there's a way to mitigate it through to being humans being part of the loop. And I'm sure that there's some transactions when it comes to signal export that is not fully autonomous for very, very good reasons, right? It has to be
Sure.
a sure thing.
Yeah, no, and we've talked a lot about how do we get to the place where we can train and support training models in real time? Like, how can we give it real time feedback loops? And, not everyone's there yet in training models like that, but I think we can get there. AI isn't a magic bullet, it's an amplifier. So, it amplifies the quality of your data, your processes, your culture. Again, I keep going back to it doesn't have to be scary, but if you structure your because a lot of people are afraid of it, and I can appreciate that and understand why. But if you structure your teams and your metrics and your mindset around continuous learning, I think it becomes a competitive edge versus a hindrance in a business.
Absolutely, absolutely. With SaaSberry, we built our practice on Microsoft, and part
Hmm.
of the reason is that our audience, our clients are mostly enterprises. They value that certainty, that security, and a lot of infrastructure is built in. And that's the thing about AI is the ability for it to use tools and for frameworks around it to support that. And just the same way as the way you guys built your software on a platform that's or on a sector that's very, very critical on security and on
Hmm.
assuredness, on reliability. That is something that you guys put into consideration in the whole product implementation.
Oh, 100%. I often say to particularly our Canadian dealer customers, you know, what I'm asking you to do is take $500,000, throw it on a truck across an international border, and just like trust it's going to get there.
Yes.
And so the reality is, everything within our ecosystem has to be structured in a way that we're embedding trust.
Mhm.
We're embedding visibility. It's one of the biggest parts of our platform is transparency and reliability, and so that's something we're super proud of.
Yeah. So there may be people who are looking at this podcast and they're new to this, and the reality is that AI is in its growth. I'm sure if 5 years from now we look back and oh, those were the early days,
Yeah.
right? So, well, what would you give the advice of someone who's in your exact role?
Mhm.
And they're going, I'm hearing from the CEO or the president that we need to launch into AI, but
Mhm.
but I'm concerned because of perhaps security. I'm concerned about what might happen, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps I don't even know enough about it. So what would your advice be for them on how to kind of take that step forward?
Oh gosh, I'm hardly the person to fully ask that question to, but at the same time, I think the future belongs to organizations that can intelligently and thoughtfully combine data discipline with curiosity, um,
Yes.
that experiment boldly, measure rigorously, and scale thoughtfully. So if those are your goals in mind, then I highly recommend taking that risk. I say to my team all the time, you can do hard things. And I think that's an important thing for a business to think as well. Uh, we can do hard things, and it can be hard to accept change. But I think ultimately, if you want to be a scalable organization or maintain your place at the table, so to speak, in your industry, it's something you're going to have to just take a risk on. And I promise it's not as scary as it feels.
So that's great. And on that note, and on that really solid piece of advice, I think it's time for us to wrap up. So thank you again, Christina. Really appreciate you jumping on with us today. Chase, do you want to wrap us up as we ride
Sure,
into the
sounds good.
sunset? Yeah.
That was fun to listen to, at least. I didn't really say anything, but it was fun to listen to. Um, yeah, the growth of coding and vibe coding, especially, I'm really just starting to research it, and it's super powerful tool for sure, and it's changing really fast. So that was very interesting, guys. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next podcast, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for
Thanks.
having
Bye
me.
bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
And we're out.
SaaSberry AI Podcast. Today's guest, Christina Taylor, AI coding for enterprise software from the POV of product managers and executive sponsors.